What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Lutties-lookback. My name is Nick Luttrell. I think it's the 12th episode we're doing this, so pretty amazing. We made it here. We made it to December. It's no longer No Shave November. You see, that's why I am trying to be clean shaven now, I guess, for the folks out there who wanted me to be clean shaven. For the folks out there that like the beard, well, it's gone, and hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoyed it while it lasted. It'll be there next November. But hey, we got a lot of good basketball and football to get to in today's show. But we'll start on the basketball side with the Razorback men's basketball team. Arkansas getting the win over UTSA on Saturday afternoon, 75-60. We'll begin the show how we always do with my three big things. This time, we normally do it with football. Obviously, football going to be over very soon. Obviously, one more game left in the season for the Razorbacks. So we'll do it for basketball, and we'll talk about Arkansas basketball before getting to anything else. My first big thing of my three big things, Hogs, they just seem like they're a second half team, and that's the case. That was the case against UTSA. They were down by 5 when it's a UTSA team that is not very good, and it seems like Arkansas is going to be a team that is just a second half team. Maybe we just have to accept that. Hopefully they'll start playing better in the first half. There's still a lot of basketball left to play as far as the course of the season. They got, 5 or 6 non-conference games until the conference season starts, so they're just fine. Again, I'll say this probably for the next month or two. It's no need to freak out. It's still early in the season, and this team is really good, and they haven't showed that they haven't showed a complete game of really good basketball. I guess if you look at the Maryland Eastern Shore game when they won by 78 or however much they won by. That game, they put it all together. But a lot of these games, we're seeing only Arkansas play really good halves. And that was the case against the win in the win against UTSA. Down by 5 at the half in that one. And then on Tuesday's game, last Tuesday against Miami, down by 8 in that one, came back and won the game. So we'll see over the course of the year if Arkansas continues to be a second half team. But that's kind of what it seems like so far. The second big thing, Aduthiero continues to be the go-to guy. Now, I know he had a little bit of a bad game against Miami, but besides that game when he had 7 points in that game, he's played really well. 26 points and 10 rebounds against UTSA. Another really, really good game for him. He is that guy for the Razorbacks. He's a dominant force. The transition he's made from when he was coming off the bench and doing okay for Kentucky last year to being the go-to guy this year is really impressive. So well done to him. If he continues to play well, that's a really good sign for this Razorback basketball team. And then once the other guys start to be a little bit more consistent, that would be great, because then that's when this team gets really scary, because Thiero's playing to his potential. None of the other guys, I don't think, really are yet, and that shows you just how much talent that this team has. So you haven't even seen, I don't think, the ceiling that this team can reach yet. That kind of leads into my last point. Boogie Fland, inconsistent, and I know that might be kind of harsh on him, but he's been able to distribute the ball. Yes, he had 7 assists, he had 6 rebounds, 6 points in the UTSA win, but 6 points and 0 for 3 from beyond the three-point line, that's not what you need from your star point guard. And he's played good and bad. He's had good boogie but bad boogie games, and I just hope he can get back to being consistent like he was a little bit earlier on in the season. He had 18 points against Miami. He had that big-time three-pointer to give Arkansas the first lead of the game with a few minutes left. But then he comes back in this UTSA game and he just doesn't look like himself. So hopefully he can get back to being the Boogie Fland that we saw a little bit earlier on in the season. But speaking of Boogie Fland, here's what Coach Cal had to say about him after the game on Saturday.
It's hard for us to win if Boogie doesn't play well. Now, he played for 20 minutes. He didn't. And then he started playing. He has the freedom within how we're playing to go do what he does. Here's what I think of him. Triple-double. Points, rebounds. You see him go get rebounds? Takes them from centers and assists. That's what I see him as. You know what? To be that guy, whoa, do you got to go hard. The entire time you're in there. You can't take plays off. You can't jog. You're not. You're chasing down rebounds. You're making easy. That's how I see him. But the last game, Adu didn't play well. And we won anyway. We don't have enough guys to have guys not play well and we still win.
All right, so there's the thoughts from Coach Calipari after the game. Again, this team is going to be just fine. Another thing that he didn't mention, but I think is worth mentioning, John L. Davis, back-to-back double-digit games. And at the beginning of the year, you've been like, that's no big deal. John L. Davis should be our leading scorer every game because he's the number 2 or number 1 transfer in all of the country coming to play for the Razorbacks. But he's been out a little bit with that wrist injury. He's been kind of battling back from it, and I'm hoping that that's the excuse I'm using to say why he hasn't played good so far this year. But back-to-back games where he's been like, okay, this is the John L. Davis we expected. Not even expected. This is probably 80% of what we expected. He's been playing at 60%. I'd give him a 60% what he's been playing so far this season. But good to see John L. Davis back to playing good basketball. Let's move on now from Arkansas basketball to Arkansas State. How about last night? The Red Wolves pulling off the upset, going to Memphis, taking down the Tigers 85-72. Pretty crazy. A-State has showed promising signs to be a really good mid-major basketball team this year. I've seen in a couple fun people on Twitter who like to say, here's what my top 25 mid-majors are. A-State's normally up there, and they're probably going to be in the top 10 of this, kind of imaginary top 10 now, but that's saying something because Memphis is not a bad basketball team. They're actually pretty good, and so for them to go on a road, get a double-digit win, and pretty crazy to think it was their first ranked win in 33 years. So well done to the Red Wolves for going on the road and getting that win. Joseph Pinion, of course, played for the Razorbacks a season or two ago, 22 points, 8 rebounds. He had 5 three-pointers in this game. When Pinion is making his three-pointers, Razorback fans, you remember it. When Pinion is on fire, there's no one who can slow him down, and we barely saw what he could do with the Razorbacks. Now we're getting to see his full potential come to a head with the Red Wolves. So special to see that Joseph Pinion is doing well, A-State is doing well, and getting the win over Memphis. That's some basketball talk. Let's move on to football now. Arkansas Razorbacks headed back to the Liberty Bowl. I don't know if that makes you fans excited or a little neutral, a little upset. I think most fans probably wanted that more than Birmingham Bowl for whatever, excuse me, for whatever reason. People just hate Birmingham, I guess. I've never been there, but it just seems like an awful place to go according to people that have talked about the Birmingham Bowl. But Liberty Bowl, it just seems like we always go there. For the Razorbacks, they always end up in the Liberty Bowl. But on the positive side, they've had a lot of success in the Liberty Bowl, and hopefully they'll have success against a really good Texas Tech team. And let me talk about success in the Liberty Bowl. Obviously, they've played in it a lot. They have 3 wins in the past 10 or 15 years that they've played in Liberty Bowl. 2022, obviously 2 years ago, the last time Arkansas was bowl eligible, that triple overtime crazy game with KJ Jefferson and the Razorbacks defeating the Jayhawks in that one. A few years before that, 2016, taking down Kansas State. I guess that was the Brett Bielema days. And then 2010, taking down Eastern Carolina. I can't remember who our head coach was in 2010, but I should know. It might have been Petrino. No, maybe not. I honestly can't remember. I think it might have been Petrino. Might have been a little bit of a down year, but yeah, Eastern Carolina 2010, 2016, 2022. So Arkansas has played in Liberty Bowl a lot. They've won the past few times that they've played there. So that's encouraging to see. They've also been successful against Texas Tech. They've only played Texas Tech like twice in the 21st century when they had that home-and-home series in the Bielema era in 2015 and 2014 when they split games. Arkansas went to Lubbock and got the win. And then the next year, or the year before that, I believe, I can't remember, Texas Tech came to Arkansas and got the win over the Razorbacks. But before that, Arkansas has a lot of success when they used to play. I guess it was the old Southwest Conference. I can't remember exactly, but they played each other a lot back in the day, and Arkansas was always pretty dominant in these games. So hopefully history can repeat itself. But let's talk about Texas Tech for this season. At the top offense in the Big 12, they have a really good high offensive attack. But the one thing to think about with their offensive attack, obviously transfer portal, so we'll see which guys are actually going to play in the bowl game, just like the Razorbacks. We'll see for the Red Raiders. One thing to note, though, their offensive coordinator no longer with the team. He accepted the head coaching job at FAU, so that's where he's at now. So Texas Tech, a really good offensive team, a pretty bad defensive team, second to last in the Big 12. And their defensive coordinator, also not with the program anymore because he was fired. That's how bad their defense was. So hopefully Taylor Green in the offense, assuming Taylor Green plays, can take advantage of the Texas Tech defense and score a lot of points. It's going to be interesting because there's obviously a lot of Razorback players that have opted out, like Andrew Armstrong and Landon Jackson have declared for the draft. There's a plethora more, a couple offensive linemen. Luke has some defensive backs that have already said, entering the transfer portal. They won't be playing in the bowl game. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a very different team than what we've seen throughout the entire regular season. Right now, it looks like Texas Tech is probably the better team, but that's with everybody on their team. There's obviously going to be players on the Red Raiders that are going to enter the portal and not play in the bowl game. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the Red Raiders probably are going to be more excited to be in this game than the Razorbacks, and I think they'll have the edge. I think they're 7 or 8 wins on the year. So, yeah, I would expect Texas Tech to have the edge over the Razorbacks, but we'll have to see how it goes. So that's the Razorbacks. Let's move on now to the Red Wolves. They finished the season 7-5. They also went to a bowl game. We found out that information yesterday. They are going to Mobile, Alabama for the 68 Ventures Bowl. Almost forgot. December 26, 8 o'clock kickoff time on ESPN. Facing off against Bowling Green, Connor Bazelak is the quarterback for the Eagles. He used to play for Missouri. If you remember, he played against the Razorbacks a couple seasons ago, transferred to Indiana. Didn't go so hot there, and now he's playing for Bowling Green. So that's really all I know about Bowling Green. I haven't done all my research as I probably need to about both of these teams and this matchup, but I'd give a slight edge early on to Arkansas State, but we'll see how this has to go. Both teams at 7-5, and certainly exciting that the Red Wolves were bowl eligible for the 2nd or 3rd straight year. So good to see what Butch Jones is doing with that program. That is Arkansas State football. That's a little bit looking ahead, but let's go more to the theme of my show. Let's look back. Harding football, a tough loss on Saturday for the Bisons. They fall to Ferris State 41-7. It was their worst loss since 2016, their largest margin of losing since 2016. So disappointing, really, in every way that you want to look at it for Harding. I mean, give credit to Ferris State. They won back-to-back national championships in 2021 and 2022. Harding obviously won last year. So both these teams, everyone was kind of talking about in the Division II world, whoever wins this game is going to win the national championship. So we'll see if that's what Ferris State ends up doing. So not the biggest surprise that Harding lost this game to a really good Ferris State team and a team that was ranked ahead of them in the polls. But you expected the score to be a little closer, and that was partly the disappointing thing about it. But looking to the future, Cole Keelan will return, their quarterback who led the GAC in rushing yards. Braden Jay will return, who's kind of the skill player. They toss him outside. They throw the ball to him occasionally when they throw the ball. So having those two offensive weapons back next year will be big. And obviously they lose a lot of key players. Blake Dela Cruz is the first one that comes to mind. One of those players that they will lose. Dre Hall in the defensive end. A lot of good defensive players. And I never talked about the defense enough. I talked about Harding probably every week on this show. Never talked about the defense enough. They deserve their credit, but obviously a tough loss on Saturday for them against Ferris State. So that is a look back at college football. Let's now look at some high school football. All right, state championship weekend in the books for Arkansas around the state, at least the 7A, 6A, 5A, and 2A. Of course, the 4A and 3 will be this upcoming weekend. But let's start with the Class 7A. Bryant taking down Bentonville for their 6th state title in the last 7 years. They took down Bentonville on Saturday night, 28-23, a comeback win. I think they were down 20-7 in the 3rd quarter, came back and won the game. So what a win for the Hornets. They didn't look good through about 2 quarters, 2.5 quarters, but give them credit. They did not quit, and they fought back to win the game. So obviously a special one. You know, Bryant just always is the team that wins in the 7A in recent years. So it may seem like if you're an average fan, not a Bryant fan, that it's lost its luster a little bit as far as like excitement for Bryant winning this state title once again. But I do want to give recognition to Quad Sanders. This was his first win as head coach. Obviously, he's been the defensive coordinator for a long time. Got a lot of state titles, state rings, but as a defensive coordinator, not as a head coach. So pretty special to see Coach Sanders getting the win. Let's give a shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, OBU commit Jordan Walker, the quarterback for the Bryant Hornets, went off in this game. He had that one interception early in the 3rd quarter, and I want to give credit to him because he didn't let that down him. The team didn't let that down them. Even when they were down in this game, they responded in a big way. Jordan Walker, 155 yards rushing, 122 yards passing, and 4 total touchdowns. 1 passing touchdown, 3 rushing touchdowns. All of them were big to help Bryant get the win. So well done to Jordan Walker. There's a lot of other guys that I can mention for this Bryant team that have been dominant all season long, and they definitely deserve to win the game, and they got it. Bentonville was a really good team. I will say I was impressed with how close Bentonville kept it for most of the game, but I think overall probably the better team won. So congrats to the Bryant Horns for winning the Class 7A state championship. So that's the 7A. Let's move on to the 5A now. Parkview taking down Farmington 61-21, third state title in a row for Little Rock Parkview. Maybe in a few years we'll be talking about how they have won 6 of the last 7 like Bryant has. That's the mark that they're going on. That's the mark that they're following in the footsteps of Bryant, but in the Class 5A. Really exciting to see Parkview doing so well. Cameron Settles, the Razorback commit, he was the MVP of this game for Parkview Patriots. 156 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, also caught an interception. I felt like it was weird if I said threw an interception, or I don't know. He played defense and he played offense, and he played them both really well. Obviously, he's going to be a Razorback as a running back, but he played a pretty good defensive back as well with a big-time interception. Can't remember Marion Robinson was the other defensive back that had a big pick 6 to cushion that lead in the first half. Parkview kind of did what they were supposed to do against Farmington. Gets a big win, 61-21. Emmanuel Bunting was great as quarterback. Quentin Murphy was solid. They did such a great job of shaking it up between both of those quarterbacks. I don't think Quentin Murphy threw the ball at all, but they changed it up who was behind center and who would be catching the ball. A lot of times it was Bunting and he was throwing. If it was Murphy, he was running. That dynamic duo of both of them playing together was really special. So going to be fun also to watch Quentin Murphy be a Razorback here in a few months. I believe he'll be an early enrollee. I'm not sure when he'll start playing in January or not, but really good job by Parkview. The defense was also stifling. Again, you don't talk about the defense enough. There were official stats in this one, so I got to give a shout out to Chris Edwards, 12 total tackles, and all of the Patriots defense, 5 sacks on the night against a pretty good Farmington offensive team that has put up a lot of points this year. Everyone talked about Parkview's offense, and rightfully so, but the defense did their part as well to get them the state title. That's the Class 5A. Got to take a breath to move on to the Class 2A. Their first title in program history, a ground and pound 2A game. Conway Christian taking the win over EPC 18-8. This one was a little different than the rest of the game. It was pretty close, a little ugly at times. A couple turnovers, a blocked punt, a fumble, an interception. It might have been an interception, might have not been, but turnovers, fumbles, a lot of things happened in this game, but Conway Christian kind of pulled ahead in the end to win the game. Had a big turnover that they forced at the end, so give credit to the defense. Colton Loper led the team with 16 tackles. On the offensive side, Brady DeMarcus, 137 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. He was the MVP in this game, and then also give credit to Meeks, who had a really impressive catch early. I think it was first quarter that helped Conway Christian get a touchdown, and obviously that touchdown helped them, ended up winning the game. So an undefeated, perfect season, the first time it's happened in Conway Christian history. So really special. Congratulations to Conway Christian on getting the 2A state title. That's the 2A. Let's also look back at the Class 4A and 3A scores from around the state. Bismarck taking down Fordyce. Man, Bismarck has been dominant in the Class 3A. A little bit of a surprise this year, getting the win 49-12 over Fordyce. Fordyce obviously without their starting quarterback the past 2 or 3 games, so hopefully he'll recover and be better, or be healthy for next season. The freshman is that guy, so hopefully he gets better. But congrats to Bismarck. They advanced to the state title game, and Mansfield falls to Salem. Salem takes them down 38-20. So in the Class 3A, it'll be Bismarck and Salem. That'll be the 6:30 p.m. game this upcoming Saturday. Then in the Class 4A, Arkadelphia taking care of business against Southside Batesville 35-6. Badgers advance to the state title game. And then Elkins taking down Mills. Mills, man, what a great season it was for them. An undefeated season until the semifinal game right here. Just had a little too many mistakes in this one to get the win, and a really good Elkins team that they ran into. That title game between Arkadelphia and Elkins will be noon on Saturday. Let's go to the NFL now from yesterday. Packers and Lions. Lions taking, actually, this was the Thursday night game, I believe. Yeah, Thursday night game. Lions, game-winning field goal by Jake Bates to get the win, 35-31. Bottom left corner of your screen, Vikings taking down the Falcons. Vikings continue to dominate. Falcons have surprised me a little bit this season with the way they've played. Vikings 42-21. The top right corner of your screen, an ugly game. I'm glad. I mean, I don't normally pay a ton of attention to NFL, but I know these two teams, Jacksonville and Tennessee, aren't the best. I think each of them have 2 wins now, so they're both pretty bad. I'm glad I didn't have to watch this one like our own Tyler Cass probably had to suffer through this. He's a big Jags fan, but the Jags get the win over the Titans. Titans still with, I think, 2 wins on this season. That one was a bit of an ugly one, another ugly one between 2 teams that aren't very good. The Saints barely beating the Giants, a frustrating one for New York. That kind of defines their season. But Saints get the win 14-11. That is a look at your NFL scores. All right, let's look at some Arkansas women's basketball now as we begin to finish up the show. They're trending in the right direction. I was on the show. Obviously, I'm on the show. It's my show. But when I talked about this last week, Arkansas women's basketball was kind of trending in the wrong direction. They had maybe 2 or 3 losses in a row. They weren't doing so well. They were losing bad teams. Now they're beginning to trend in the right direction. Granted, it's not against amazing teams, but back-to-back wins and impressive wins at that. On Wednesday or Thursday, they got the win over Boston College in the ACC SEC Challenge, 75-64. So that was good for the Razorbacks, and they came right back yesterday, dominating the final 3 quarters to get the win over SEMO 84-45. One thing to note about that game, Arkansas trailed by 10 in the first quarter, and then the second quarter and the third quarter, they went on like a 48-7 run and ended up winning the game, obviously by a 30 or 40. So pretty impressive that they were able to do that. Started out really slow against the SEMO team that's only had 1 win on the season. But then after that, they picked it up and got the win. So maybe they're trending in the right direction. They're off this week because I think it's finals week at the university. Their next game will be 1 week from yesterday, I believe that is. All right, we'll end our show, as we always do, with the Lutties look ahead. We'll do for the men's basketball team. Arkansas facing off against Michigan in the Jimmy V Classic, New York City, in Madison Square Garden. That game is tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We'll see how the Razorbacks can do. A big-time game against a big-time opponent, Michigan of the Big Ten. We'll see what the Razorbacks can do. One of their bigger neutral site games of the year. So we'll see if the Razorbacks can take down the Wolverines at Madison Square Garden. Well, that's going to do it for Luttie's Look Back episode 12. Thanks so much for watching. We're going to have a bowl preview next week. I hopefully know a little bit more about Texas Tech. I can give you some of my analysis and, of course, talk a little bit more about basketball, hopefully talking about an Arkansas basketball win. But that's going to do it for Luttie's Look Back. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.